talk focus on the sound-image connections, and I will show or talk about different techniques and methods like, for example, computed tomography, CT, as you know, well-known, sound-reactive, analog of hybrid technique. And I will show, I think it's maybe 10 short videos. And the other aspect is what is the synchrony, maybe the asynchrony, what is the syncresis. It could be interesting. For me, it's always interesting. So, and I will a little bit talk and always show something, some examples. For example, the aesthetics of error, if we can say maybe the glitch art or the glitch aesthetics. And what is the improvisation or compromisation? All of these notions will be in connection with my works. So that's in my perspective, I will show. And what is the live electronics or that will be the resume. I started in the 90s, early 90s, with videos, VHS technique, SVHS, and Super 8 films. And in the beginning, I made abstract videos. Maybe my thinking is very abstract, I don't know. The first example was made 12 years ago. The title is City, and it was a collaboration with Andrea Sigetvári. She's a composer. And it's live electronics and the sonification. I will talk about it a little bit later. I used the CT technique, computed tomography. I made the animation first. It was the source. Usually the CT they use for imaging human body in the medical life. I used different objects I put to the engine on this machine, like wires. The wires made a failure. It has a big disturbance. This CT animation first is made. It was 1.5 minutes. And my colleague made an interactive music system where the music is controlled by the video. That's why it's a sonification. And it was performed real time. Because with special programming, she could direct the video. She could make slower, random effects, forms. So my work was the visuals, but I was interested mostly about these disturbances and how I can make with a real, these are a wire, an abstract animation. I intend to present 5 different parts in this presentation. The next one, it's about the synchrony and the syncresis. Maybe everybody knows what is the synchrony. If we use image and the sound, you can recognize that it has a synchronicity or not. Usually for example, the sound generates the video and they goes together, parallel. This is the synchrony. But sometimes very interesting, the syncresis could be. So what is the syncresis? When the sound and the visual elements meet, and it has a special relations, they form a special relation. This is the sync points. And if we go together in this line, that we can talk about the syncresis. Syncresis is the spontaneous and irresistible weld produced between a particular auditory phenomenon and visual phenomenon when they occur at the same time. This join results independently of any rational logic. So it's a very brief resume of this. And I would like to show 2 examples. First for the synchrony and the second for the syncresis. But sometimes it's not so different. It has some overlaps, so it's not so strict. I was made this opus for 10 years and it was about 200 short videos. in this title Synchrony, and this is the 130. It's usually a 1 and 3 minutes long, very short audiovisual works of art. I used in this audio spectrum only the After Effects. And the next one could be as examples for the syncrasis. Yu Miyashita asked me to produce a short video, and he sent me a 3 minutes long music piece, and I made this one. This is the partiture. When I worked, I tried to find the sync points. It was a little bit strange for me because all of my works, I made the sounds. Not I make the sound generate the visual. So it was very unique for me. It was the first time that I used hybrid technique. The source is analog, and after I make digital modifications. And it's not sound reactive because the sound was fixed. Next section is about analog and hybrid techniques. About 4 years ago, I started to use analog technique again because I used it in the early 90s. And these pieces, all of them sound reactive, real-time recording, so no editing points, never. These are visualizations. Always the sound is the source, and it generates the motion pictures. I can see it's an improvisations or compromisations. In the most cases, the same streams of data generate both audio and visuals through early media instruments. Concepts like real-time audio visualization are common in these works of art, giving from the visual music. This technique from the late 60s, 70s. The most well-known pioneer video artists like Nam June Paik, Gary Hill, Vasulkas, Dave Jones used this technique. You can see on the right side a big Doepfer analog modular synthesizer. It's so big, but it's my opinion, its sound is very different. It can really compare with the digital. I'm a little bit fan of the analog, so excuse me. And in the bottom of these photos, you can see a video synthesizer were made in the 70s by Dave Jones. It's a mixer and colorizer. And the right side, you can see a wobulator or a raster manipulation unit. It's a prepared television, old television, like in the tubes. Dave Jones and Nam June Paik with Shuya Abe and the others in parallel invented this one. It's very interesting. It has no output because picture produce the background of the screen and phosphorus, something is like phosphorus alterations. And you can only catch the picture with another camera. I used the original 70s camera. They said that Nam June Paik used this equipment too, and Jude Yalkut, Gary Hill, and others in signal culture. The first example will be 1 minute signal I used this audio synthesizer, wobulator, and the Dave Jones colorizer and mixer. And there was some of After Effects. It's very interesting. In that time, the color video was not invented. And such a genius like Dave Jones made the mixer, and they can make colors. But they have to invent a special monitor too for this. So in the late 60s, they made color videos. But it's not real color videos. It's colorizer videos. Two examples for the hybrid technique, when always the basement is an analog, and after some of digital application finalize the product. All of this sound reactive, and all of this like an improvisation. You can't see any editing or cutting points, no editing, but have post-production. First of all, the analog technique resolution is too low because this is 720 times 480 pixels. The first example, that's why it was so small. And I thought about it, that how can I make a bigger one? And these two other, the relay and the compromisation, I enlarged. But I have another technique how we can make full HD. You can see that the analog was digitized. Dave Jones and the others made it. How can this old, 50 years old equipments to make to digitize? But the resolution is remained, the original. In that time, in the 60s, this was the most professional resolution. The next section, I used again the analog sources, but I make full HD, like in the digital montage. The novella is two different sources put together. The ruler is a little bit complicated. It's more sources, but it's the same improvisation. And this one, which was made homage to Nam June Paik, and these classical video artists use this equipment. I think about that, can I make something new for this, or something which is in these years can talk something? And I think, yes, I can. I think it's a failure, then we forget this technique. Because when it was invented, it has 2 decades. And after the digital came, and everybody forgotten this one. But it has no time to experiment really with this, and it's a little bit fashion now to use again this one. And you can buy some similar manufactured equipments. So you can make some similar studio like this. This is similar than the other ones. It's homage to Nam June Paik because the Zen TV or on the Zen in the same equipment that he used in the earlier. After he made his own video synthesizer with Shuya Abe, everybody knows that one, but first he used this one too. When I made this piece, I asked a composer to make an extra sound. That's why the sound is Attila Dora and me. And the next, a little bit about the glitch, but I prefer to say aesthetics of error or not really glitch. It's a very important book, the Flusser Towards the Philosophy of Photography. And one of the last sentences is, the experimental artists are consciously looking for possibilities to make the program fail. Yes, I think so. It's very important. We use different way the software and the hardware. And we always go against the technique, the normal technique. Like in the CT, when I make disturbances, I make errors. So error is sometimes very interesting because it can be like a chance. I can't really plan. It can be surprise. So I like it. But as I think about it, the whole video art is the failure of electricity. Because if you see the classic videos, always they go against the technique or the apparatus. As this is the experimentation, this is the playing, where we can do it because we play. And if you make an improvisation, like Olive's this, that you can't really know that in this moment what will happen. It's very exciting for me. It's true that after you make a post-production, but the main part of the opus is improvisation. That's why I say it's a compromisation, because make some compositions. I use VHS technique in this crashing poem because the VHS has a very special colors. In the analog, you have always surprise, but sometimes you can lost what you make because you turn knobs. I usually use at the post-production MIDI controllers and make another layer with MIDI controller. But it's an improvisation too. I started with a live performance with Andrea Szigetvári, the CT. And in the last year, I started again to make live performances, comprovisations. Sometimes I collaborate with a composer. Sometimes I make it alone. I usually use hybrid technique. You can see the very common MIDI controller. And the MIDI controller and the MacBook is enough for this. I usually make audiovisual source. It's an improvisation like all this. And if I collaborate with a musician, I ask the musician to make other extra sound or music layer. It's a real improvisation for him. And I improvised the visuals with this MIDI controller. If I'm alone, I can't improvise the audio and the visual together. Analog video is full of failure errors because if the resolution is too low, the colors is electro colors. It's strange. The focus is not perfect. That's why we are interested about it. It's like an electro painting, the video, because the perfect 4K video, you can't do this because it's so perfect. It's another story. But when we use, for example, the analog, we strengthen these failures. It's not really failures. There's these live electronics, when you use this MIDI controller, that you have to learn it. It's like an instrument, a musical instrument. It has 8 different knobs, and I give 8 different features, characteristics. And if I can combine, that I can lost. I made it for 1 year, but I always have to practice how I can direct this technique because it's interesting. And it's very exciting, I think. It's a good play. And so what is the most important? To playing and to enjoy. It's one of my websites, and there are some of links. But there is another website, visualzene.hu. It's a visual music.hungary, and it's edited by me. And there is a lot of English and Hungarian materials. And the Punto Iraja is the links. So if somebody is interested about it, I recommend this one. So thank you for the attention.